the Pixels Digital Ministry Across Generations panel. I'm going to step off stage and you guys just have fun.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm so excited for us to get to share this conversation. Charles, I know that we've had an opportunity to collaborate before, and Michael, who, believe it or not, he is here. He's just doing his best John Cena impression. Oh, I can see you now. All right, there we go. So,
sorry about that.
Very good. Very excited about our Beyond the Pixels conversations we'll have today. And we're just going to jump straight into it. But we do want to make sure for everyone that's watching, if you have any questions, feel free to populate them in their chat, because we would love to be able to speak to any of those questions in real time also. I want to just kind of open it up with, we've all had our own nerd journeys that we've gone on throughout our lives. And in my day, and I think probably for y'all as well, carrying superhero lunchboxes, wearing an Akira shirt, or an anime or anything like that was a good way to spend a lot of your lunch periods sitting alone at a table. And then on the bus ride home, if you hadn't taken Taekwondo lessons, those could get very interesting as well. Wasn't a great time for us back in the day. And now all of this is incredibly popular and accepted forms of media in the mainstream, and especially this current generation. So, Charles, I'll start with you. Why do you believe that these themes that come from anime and from gaming and such, why are they speaking so directly to this generation in a way that these movies are making hundreds of millions of dollars? K-pop Demon Hunters is the biggest thing that's ever happened to Netflix. Like, there's an appetite for this that is bigger than it's ever been. Why do you believe this generation in particular is responding to it so much?
Speaking of K-pop Demon Hunters, I just got this in the mail the other day.
Cheap pop right there. Thank you.
No, that's a great point. Yeah, K-pop Demon Hunters is the biggest series on Netflix. Then it got released at theaters. It was the #1 movie in the theaters. Demon Slayer came out last week, made $70 million. It is insane, and I think there's a practical to it, and then there's the kind of deeper answer to it, which is the deeper part is that I think. There's in anime, at least I'll let you all talk about gaming, but there's this incredible creativity, this maturity to the storytelling, this interesting way of approaching it that is different for Western audiences, at least. And so that really speaks to the audience. And so you have this group of young people coming up, and they're looking for something different, and this is really interesting to them. I saw a study that Crunchyroll actually commissioned a few months ago, and over 50% of Gen Zers love or like anime. It is a part of their everyday life. They were asked to kind of rank, where they would place it, and they place it just above Beyonce and just below the NBA. So that's pretty significant where they feel it is. So it's really speaking to them, but then it's also kind of this the slow growth of it being released out to the public. Stephen, you were mentioning, like, when we were kids, at that time, anime was a lot more niche, right? And what was available a lot of times in video stores was very much sci-fi a lot of times. So that had that very nerdy feel to it. When it wasn't cool to be a nerd. And then there was so much of it that was really highly sexual. So it kind of had this very subculture feel. But then the 90s came around, and the 2000s came around, and stuff started getting released on cable. You had Cartoon Network started showing anime, and that was really big. There was still very adult anime, but then there was anime aimed at girls like Sailor Moon. There was anime aimed at kids like Hamtaro. Pokemon came along and just blew everything out of the water. And so, as companies do, they realized there was money to be made, right? So they started posting more and more, showing more and more anime. Now it's on Netflix, we mentioned, Amazon Prime, Hulu, in the theaters. And so there was already this appetite for it, but now we have access to it. And so there's people young and old that are really enjoying it this day and age.
And Michael, same thing with gaming. It's become bigger and bigger every year. And there's kind of a funny saying now that almost everything gets compared to this happened before GTA 6. Like, that's now a pop culture thing that people talk about Call of Duty in a way that previously it was just a handful of us that would gather in a basement with a bunch of cables to play Halo together. And now it's this massive thing. Why do you believe that it has become such a great storytelling medium that we see, and streamers are utilizing this as their means of connecting with the world and turning it not just to a form of passive income, but also this in many ways is their way that they relate to other people in the world now.
Great question. And let me see, because my mic, is it okay? Like you guys can hear me good? Okay, cool. Just in case. Yeah. All right. So I don't know how close it should be. But yeah, great question. I remember like when you were saying like when I was a kid, like my first console was the NES, so like story wasn't really like a big thing, you know, like you just played the NES games and it was just fun, you know. So and I guess most kids were young, like we didn't know, we were just having fun and like dig into it and all of that. So I think as just like Charles Twwk was saying, like it just keeps growing, and of course there's just more money to be pushed to it. And as more people are playing games, there's more money, there's just more everything. It just started to grow and expand to where it is now. Like story is huge, you know, like there's literally books written about some games. Like you had just written about K-pop. I mean, I know K-pop Demon Hunter's not a game, but I mean, there's even like a Christian book that's like about Legend of Zelda. There's tons of books like just digging deep into like games. So stories keep growing. More money's pushed. There's more graphics. You know, some games cost more than movies are made. They make more than these really big movies. So I think I might be wrong. I'm not good I don't have any statistics in front of me, but I believe like gaming is bigger than the movie industry. But I might be wrong. But I think it is. But anybody can Google it and double check. But I know it's really big. It's a lot of money. So you know, and it just keeps growing, and it's just amazing how a lot of games are even turned into movies. You know, which I wish there'd be more movies, more games turned into movies, because there's some games that you play and you're like, this would be an amazing movie. Like this is better than a movie, especially JRPGs, which I'm a huge fan of. Like there's so many RPGs that should be movies and they're not. And they're just like trapped in this game. And I'm like, I want everybody to know about this story. But like, unless you play the 40, 50 hours of the game, you don't know, you know? So it's just amazing how games have expanded and evolved. And yeah, it's just growing as a genre. But did I answer that question? I don't know if I missed anything there.
No, 100%. I think
I'll ramble. So yeah.
No, you're great. And I think that kind of leads us into, this is going to be a tough question for us to wrestle with, but the reality is, and Charles just shared in the chat, you know, gaming is bigger than the movie industry, you know, $200 billion. The reality is there's a massive amount of crossover in the amount of people who claim to be Christians and attend church every day and play video games and watch anime. There's a reason K-pop Demon Hunters went straight to the top of Netflix, and I have a feeling a lot of people have watched it in order to get it there who come from the same church pews we sit in. But here's the interesting thing. Sometimes the hardest place for acceptance of being a fan of anime or fan of gaming or any of these things is in church spaces, if we're being very honest, where the mediums themselves almost have this controversial feel to it at best, and maybe anathema at worst in many of our modern cultures. So it's kind of interesting because a lot of times other secular media options are permitted to go mainstream, if we're being honest. I remember I went to a church service where the pastor openly talked about, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And I'm thinking, so we're talking about Die Hard, but we can't talk about this. like in mine, nobody, I can play all of Metal Gear Solid 1 with a non-lethal head count through the entirety of it, but we can talk about that. It's a very curious thing. So Charles, I'll start with you. Why do you think that we see that even still present day, that it's almost given, despite how big it is, and we all know we're playing the games and we're watching the movies and we're participating, it's still not something we necessarily feel that we can openly speak to without it having an immediate form of judgment to it?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and it's we could probably talk an hour about it. I do think a lot of it has to do with what I referred to earlier, which is the earliest availability in my memory. I mean, it was available before then, but just thinking about being a kid and going to rental stores, the anime that was available was very adult, right? And so there is this feeling of what anime is, and some of it is adult, right? And so if you've never experienced and dug into it and watched it, and you may think that anime is only very hypersexualized, hyperviolent, and you don't necessarily we haven't taken the time to really dig into it and say, anime is animation, it's Japanese animation, so it's just a medium like live action filmmaking. It ranges from children's stuff to really adult stuff, and that whole spectrum in between. So there's still that's overriding everything. And and the church takes a while to adopt stuff. I mean, that's how we are. I mean, Die Hard's interesting. That's an 80s movie. So, it took a while too, right? Which is fine. But like, I think about rock and roll. Actually, that's kind of the comparison that comes to mind immediately. I can only imagine what my grandparents' generation was thinking when they were going to church, and their kids were really into Elvis, and they were freaking out, and they were probably preaching the evils of it from the pulpit. Because I remember in the mid to late 90s, I still had a pastor that was talking about how awful rock and roll was, and it shocked me. I was like, this is still being talked about here. But in the 90s was also when we started incorporating drums and electric guitars into worship music, right? So the church was slowly adopting it, and part of that, I think, was coming to the realization that this is not evil, right? This is a tool. This is a possibility also to express God in a really creative, really cool way that can actually help people worship. Anime needs to get to that point too, right? Like where the church can understand, hey, this is not necessarily evil by itself, as much as anything else is, right? It's made by human hands, right? Just like a maybe or maybe not Christmas movie, right? And the church is just coming around to it. I got the opportunity 5 or 10 years ago to teach a class in my church about a series called Haibane Renmei, and we were able to talk about how that anime, it was basically a Bible study based on that anime, and that church allowed me to open those doors was really terrific. And it was because I had the relationship there. I was in leadership there, and they trusted me with it. And I think the church will bit by bit, open those doors if the people of the church who are into anime can show that, hey, there's something incredible about this that can really reach people.
That's a great point. And Michael, whenever we were hearing Charles talk about that, I was just thinking when we have that kind of reaction, what happens is we force that underground, and it becomes this. It still exists, but now I feel like I can't bring my whole self to church. I feel like I can participate to a level, and then you talk in the lobby like, oh, do you play Call of Duty too? Oh, I also like Call of Duty. And then you secretly have these little patches of it. Whereas if we were just open and embrace these things, we probably would find that almost every one of us would say, I also have watched Avengers Endgame, and I also thought it was really cool when he caught the hammer. And we could speak to that in a bigger way. So Michael, my question to you is, how can we, as participants in the space and participants in our local church, how can we encourage that? I know, Charles, you're talking about the Bible study you created. That is a great example, but how can we encourage that in a way that shows that just like all of these other things, it has a place where if we try to pretend it doesn't exist, we're just kind of forcing that entire group of people to feel like we don't relate and it's not welcome.
Really good question. I thought about that before too. Like how do you integrate it more? Like I don't want to say in church, but just like the church, not like church building, but yeah. And then side note to what Charles was saying is so true. Like I remember when I was younger, like to find anime with just like these VHS tapes, and they were all like Japanese, and they would just be like hidden in the back of like a little VHS store or something. And then my friends were bringing, was like, we got some Dragon Ball Z. I'm like, oh my gosh, like we got the new episodes, and it was like a big thing. And it's like, yeah, it was there was no subtitles. It was not good footage. It was great. I had good memories. It was like you're watching like a secret thing. Anyway. But yeah, how to incorporate it more. I think, like you mentioned, Charles gave a great example. It sounds a little, I don't want to say like higher level, but I don't know how many churches would do this, but like what he did, like doing Bible studies would be cool. There's so many devotionals that you can even purchase, like yours, of course. I have one here that I just got. I haven't even read it yet. Daily Nerd Devo is another one. Like there's the K-pop one.
Charles, you are the best. I'm gonna have to hire you as a spokesperson.
Like there's so many devos and stuff and books and materials that just people. That's why I even have in my own website. I like to find stuff. And I'm like, nobody knows about this stuff. Like people need to know, like there's material out there. It's like, because people are like, I didn't know there was a devotion. There's like 10 of them, like they're everywhere, they're on Amazon, So devotionals is one great way that you can incorporate maybe a leader or an elder or someone in your church. Be like, hey, look, I have just to go, because I have it right here in my hand. Like, hey, there's this devotional. I would love to just like maybe in a small group once a month or something, like you kind of like
that's
pitch it,
fantastic. That's
yeah, like, hey, I don't even need to like come up with stuff. I can just bring this to the Bible study.
Just use that as a chance to talk, and it also would probably give a chance for others to be able to share maybe their discomfort level with it. But I've always found it ironic that we can go to church and we will talk about we're all going to watch the Super Bowl this evening, but if we did the exact same thing, all right, and after this we're all going home to play Halo, right? Well, that would probably go viral immediately in a very, very bad way. But a lot of people do, is the reality of that. And if we're all being honest, I don't want to speak for you here, but I will tell you, we've been doing Finding God in video games now from an online ministry standpoint for 7 years. And during that, I can tell you, the worst comments I've ever gotten, the harshest criticism has never come from someone who doesn't share my beliefs. It has never come from someone. I mean, every now and then you get the person like, why are you mixing God with this video game? But even then it's a very minimal comment. I have gotten pages from people that are telling me, oh, this is the most vile thing you possibly could have done. This is the worst thing since the crucifixion of Christ, is what you're doing. Like, okay, that's a little much. Yeah, that's a little harsh. And the reality is I don't know about y'all, but that is what I have felt when trying to put that out there. So I just open it up to y'all. I mean, when we encourage people to do these Bible studies and stuff, the reality is there might be that level of rejection. What are your encouragements and thoughts around that?
You want to go first, Charles? Or
I'll go first. That's been my experience too. So, well, for the most part, when I started, it really the backlash I got was from non-Christians at first, who didn't want me in their space. But then it's flipped now, and I would say at least 95% of negative comments now are from Christians. And I think that has something to do with what's going on culturally. Again, we could probably talk about that for an hour, but. I really think it's up to us individually. There are so many of us nerds now that are Christian in churches, actively serving, seeking God. We have that opportunity to show our brothers and sisters, right, that this is what we like. This excites us, and it's not of the devil. We can really dive into this and still be faithful Christians. And in fact, we can dive into this and use it as ministry. So some of that I think is letting people know one by one. I was at a small group meeting a couple weeks ago. I don't think any of these new small group members will be here, but I was talking about Beneath the Tangles, and some of them were like, that's so cool. And then we brought up K-pop Demon Hunters, and one of them was like, I could never watch that. There's demons in it. Which is kind of that idea, right? Because, but I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I try not to.
Tell them you are really going to hate the book of Matthew. Let me tell you, there's thousands of them in one dude. It's hard.
Yeah. They're not there yet, right? We have to, I think we have to bring them along, right? And what I see is what I would love to see is when I see online, this has not been in any church I've experienced, but I see some of these churches that have built out spaces for nerds, right? To do ministry there. Like you would have like this wonderful space to watch the Super Bowl, right? And by the way, I'm a sports fan, so I would love that, right? But there's also now churches that build out spaces for D&D. Right? There's places that build out spaces for gaming, and they can address they can reach out to a part of the population that is not being reached out to on those terms. And they also engage their own ministry, the people there that want to do something with their passion, but don't really have a space for it. So I hope I'm seeing some of that happen, and I would love to see more of that happen.
Michael, I'll kind of turn this to you. So how can we use what we know about the Bible and use all of these incredible tools that we have that we're being gifted by anime, by gaming, and through all of these great stories? How do we use that to reach this current generation and use the language of these incredible art forms that we appreciate without compromising or watering down the truth of the message of Christ? Because that's the critical point, is we can't really cross over if we don't bring the crossover with us. It does have to make sure that it's present there. It can't be just a collection of we're just here to play Halo. There also has to be that component but we're going to talk about what it means to live a life of sacrifice. We're going to talk about what it means to have gone through battles and have these scars so you can save others. Like, we're going to make those things work through the Bible as well.
Yeah, so that's why even myself, I have my gaming and God ministry, and I'm also with Beneath the Tangles. Is we write articles, video content, and is any kind of content in any way, anywhere you can share, whether it's social media posts or whatever, and then you're finding a biblical perspective in the anime, or in my case, the video games, or for me, for both, because I love both. But yeah, you play a game, or you see something in a character, or yeah, it's usually for me, just to talk personally, like I'll play a game and then I'm like, oh yeah, that reminds me of the Bible. Like they're saying that, but that reminds me of verse whatever or chapter whatever, or this person in the Bible. I'm like, that's wild. Like this has nothing to do with the Bible, but it reminds me of that scripture, and I'm like, and I know it's the Holy Spirit, but it's funny. Like I'll catch myself and I'm like, that's wild. Like I'm playing this game and I'm being reminded about the Bible, and I'm like, am I the only one that saw that? You know. So then that's why I started writing about it, and I'm like, and then other people are like, oh yeah, that's amazing, and I'm like, oh okay, so it wasn't just me. Or like you can show how it's there. Now of course the person that made the game 99% of the time, they had no intention of putting anything with Bible. They weren't praying about it. They were like, let's see if we could sneak this in there. I think it's just how it just reminds me of a verse. I forget the verse, like chapter and verse, but I know there's a verse that says God put eternity in the hearts of man. So I feel that sometimes like that's in us, like it's just something spiritual that we're going to express our nature, that we're made in God's image. And even if you don't know it, or you're not aware of it, or you're not spiritual or whatever, it's just going to come out like in some form. And it's just there inside of us, like God put it in us, because we're his creation, you know? So even when you make something, unless it's intentionally like there's just the games that are just like pure evil, like everything in the game is evil, you know? And it's like, yeah, I'm not playing that, you know, because you can see like the intention, like what the developers and the creators wanted to put out there, and you're like, yeah, there's not really like a lot of spiritual hope here. You know, it's just kind of hope is dead in this game, you know. But there's a lot of games that it's not intentional, and they're trying to put out something positive, especially like in JRPGs and story-based games. And you'll find it a lot because there's a lot of positivity, and it's like good versus evil, and the characters are developing. And even with K-pop, even Hunter, there's a lot of stuff there. So it just comes out, and it's not intentional. But as a Christian, you can kind of like dig in, and you're like, oh yeah, like this connects with this, and how do I say, like you put the pieces together and you make it, as you said, like into content, whether it's an article or a video or whatever, an audiobook or a podcast or whatever, and you talk about it, and then people go, oh, I didn't see that, but it was there, you know, and they just didn't put the pieces together. Or maybe it was there, they kind of saw it, but they were like, they don't know how to express it, you know. So sometimes I'll hear stuff, whether it's any of our contents, and I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. I should have thought of that. I didn't see that there, but it's there, you know. So
you're right. And many times, you know, we look at some of these things and we think, well, how is it possible for something that we can apply to have a Christian worldview? Like clearly, like I'm a huge Star Wars fan. George Lucas is clearly not somebody who is associated with the Christian faith, and made it very, very clear. Yet we still see all of these things about the Force and that kind of stuff. Like you can take a lot of those applications from there, even though that was never in any way the intent of the creator for that. But I think you're right. It's so many times these creators are, you know, looking through a glass darkly, trying to find something of substance there. It's a heart that's searching. And when people tell me, well, there's no way that you can get anything uniquely Christian out of someone who's, I'm like, have you never heard of Balaam? Like, this is a guy who clearly was only prophesying evil for money, and yet he was chosen to bless the nation of Israel multiple times. So the Lord uses whoever he wants to as his mouthpiece. They don't have to necessarily even be complicit in it in order for him to be able to do so.
Can I interrupt you really quick? Like the verse of that, reminding of that verse in the book of Acts. I don't know the chapter, but was it Acts? I think it was Acts. There was a guy named Simon the sorcerer. I think it was that guy or another person, and they were saying, hey, this guy is using, it was Jesus, it was in the Gospels, and then they told Jesus, hey, like that guy's using your name and he's not supposed to do that. And they were like,
he's not one of us.
He's not one of us. So what, do we shut him up? Do we stop this guy? And he said, no, let him do it. The word of God is being preached. So I always looked at it as like, God, like you said, God will just use anybody, even if you don't even know what you're doing, you know, like God will somehow use that for his good, even if you don't know what you're doing.
It's a very complicated subject. And Charles, I'd love to have you chime in too. One of the things I've always been fascinated with is, you know, Jesus sent out the 70, right? He sent his disciples out with him. And the Bible makes it very clear. They all went out ministering and doing healing and all these things. So we have to allow then the reality that Judas did that too. He was used by God to do miraculous things, despite the fact that he was also going to do some very horrific things later on. So how do we look at that and say, you know, these creators don't have a Christian worldview, they're not faith-based, but yet they're reaching? Why do you think that we see so much of that showing up, where we, as Christians, we look at it and we're like, you don't realize you're telling the story of Jacob and Esau with Thor and Loki? Like, you don't see that? How do you not see that? How do you? For me, I look at Iron Man, I'm like, that's Solomon. That is so obviously Solomon. Who else could be a playboy billionaire philanthropist other than that? Like, how do you not see that you're stealing from the Bible? But that was not their intent. So why do you think we kind of see those themes coming out from people that may never even have read any of those portions of the Bible?
Yeah, no, I think you touched on it a little while ago, with the idea that we're reaching for the invisible God, right? Whether we understand it or not, whether we're going that way or not. Michael also mentioned that, and you did too, Stephen, about God using whomever He wants for His glory, right? And so it's really interesting to me that, like, Star Wars is a great example. Not that George Lucas is some really foul, terrible person. Maybe for some people in our generation he was when the prequels came out. I loved them, but you know, like, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there are people out there that are really, really like doing just things that are like, oh, I can't even believe that. But they're creating this incredible stuff sometimes that's pointing us to the gospel, like whether they realize it or not, because God's working in all of us hearts. He's working to draw all of us to Him. So when someone says like, so part of the appeal I feel towards non-Christian media is this incredible thing where we see this happening, where we see these incredible creative stories I think are pointing towards God. And it shouldn't surprise us, because if God's imbued this incredible creative quality in some people that are incredible artists, what are they going to draw? Well, you know, if God's working on our hearts, it's no surprise that there are aspects of God coming out of it all the time. Even in something like an anime that's very Japanese, where Christianity was effectively stomped out 500 years ago there. Let me see. We have this book, or we don't have this book, but I've read this book. Let's see if I can. It's called Silence and Beauty. It's by Makoto Fujimura. And at Beneath the Tangles, a few of us did a book club on this. And it's really interesting because he's talking about the book Silence, which is a classic book in Japanese literature about the persecution that happened in Japan. And as he's talking about this, he's an artist. He's talking about his art, and he's a Christian also. And he's also talking about 9/11, which he lived through. And he's talking about all this together. And part of his point here is that the Japanese people, there's a collective trauma from what happened when Christianity was persecuted 500 years ago. And so, interestingly enough, although the Shogun was trying to destroy Christianity, it's become a deeply seated part of their culture. Every Christian or every Japanese person growing up knows about the Japanese persecution. They've brought into this kind of collective trauma they have as a people, which is also connected to World War II and all sorts of things. And so God is even working in a culture that got rid of Christianity 500 years ago, that's only 1% Christian. He's even working there. And it feels like that culture is actually maybe close to starting to know God better. And of course, there are all these people in America that are going to Japan, wanting to share the gospel over there. There's anime coming out of there that we see has all these Christian values. And it's incredible that God is working in this culture here that's clearly not Christian, but we're all made in God's image. So God is working in all of us.
It reminds me a lot of Acts 17, when Paul was looking and he was seeing all of the idols that they created, right? And instead of walking through there and saying, this pagan culture that I'm surrounded by, all they do is worship idols. Instead, he saw the opportunity and he said, that right there, that altar to the unknown God, that's who I'm here to talk to you about. He said, I see that you are very religious. Let me explain to you what you're actually searching for, because you keep making gods because none of them are actually the right one yet. That's why you have one to the unknown God, because you know you're not complete with what you have. And they had dozens of them littering that area. And he used that as a way to say, I know, I see you searching. I see you're hungry. You're looking for something to worship. You're looking for something beyond yourself. Let me take what you already have and let me work through that and tell you about the unknown God that you're searching for and haven't found yet. And I think that's a really poignant way to look at our generation right now that's searching for that unknown God that they've misunderstood because he's been shared with them the wrong way, perhaps, or they've seen it performed in a negative sense and it gave them a bad taste in their mouth, but they're still hungry. There's a huge spiritual hunger. I would argue it's probably as much as has ever been present in my lifespan for looking for something beyond ourselves. And I think that's what we're searching for through these gaming experiences. I mean, they're looking for something to connect to other people. And they're looking for a story that actually has a happy ending for once many times. So I'm going to start with you, Michael. When we're looking at what we do, you do Gaming and God, which is fantastic, Beneath the Tangles with the anime realm for Charles. If there's one game, or you could use anime, whichever, that you're like, this is my go-to. If I was going to try to take someone who is at least open to the idea that you can use games to share the love of Christ and a story from the Bible, what's the one that you would say, all right, this is my go-to, that if I got one shot to convince someone that gaming and God goes together like peanut butter and chocolate, which one is yours?
Peanut butter and chocolate is good. There's so many games. I mean, it's a little bit of a niche one. I guess it's a little bit of an easy one. I guess I would go with Kingdom Hearts, which is behind me there. Like, that's an easy one because it's very, very like light and dark. Like, that's like the whole concept of the game. So, and it's very like goody two shoes a little bit. It's like the positive, happy character, but he's like a little bit complex, doesn't really know what's going on. You don't understand like the darkness that it is, and it's in darkness, it's in people's hearts, and you have to break the darkness out of their hearts and all that. It's very about hearts and darkness and light and all of that. So that's like the really main concept. And then between all of that is all the little Disney worlds and all that. It's like Kingdom Hearts is interesting. It's like a really heavy story, and then it's like, just fun, cute little gameplay, and then it gets really dark and and heavy, and then like the game ends. It's kind of always been like that. So, but it's an amazing series that really dives deep into that, and you can go as deep or shallow as you want to go. But yeah, to compare a little bit more, I guess you see that a lot with the game. Sora, the main character, he deals a lot with that. And then you have Riku. So like Sora and Riku were like kind of like, they're not brothers, but they're kind of like brothers. They're like best friends. And then Sora went like the light, like you could compare it to like Star Wars. Like he went like with what's his name? I'm blanking right now. Anakin and Luke. Yeah. So then like Anakin went to the dark, and then Luke went to the light. So it's kind of they did kind of like that. Like they were both good. But Riku's like, nah, I'm gonna try this dark thing. I like this. This is and he gave into the temptation. Like he was tempted, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go that way. I'm gonna do this dark thing. And then Sora was like, no, I'm not doing that, And then there was a clash, and then eventually Riku, happily ever after. But he was still kind of like the dark kind of character, He's like the shadow of Sonic and Shadow. So yeah, so you can see that polarity in the games. So that would be an easy one. But again, it's a little bit of a niche game. Like not everybody knows about Kingdom Hearts, But
there's only a few million people that have played.
Yeah, just a few million.
It's very, very small.
Very small, tiny.
Can relate to Kingdom Hearts, Mickey Mouse, and Square Enix. But no, I love that. Yeah. Kingdom Hearts is definitely a fantastic series that you can pull from and draw. Oh, there you go. Yeah. And what I think is so great about a lot of these is there's such a story of redemption and restoration in almost every one of these, that whether, we talked about Star Wars and the redemption of Darth Vader through that entire, series that went through. Of course, you're talking about Riku there. Like that's clearly what even these non-Christian game designers and filmmakers are looking for is redemption. It's a really interesting thing that they're seeding that same concept of fallen people coming to a place of redemption. They're just missing the impetus for what causes that. And maybe that's what they're searching for, and they can only find it through fiction because they haven't accepted the reality of it yet. So Charles, I'm going to come to you for the anime version. So if you got one shot and you get to convince someone, look, I can marry these two things together in a beautiful way that you can take a really great anime and you can find the truth of God in it. Which one is yours?
Because as we've explained that anime is just like live action, and there are so many genres. I'm going to give several answers instead, because it really depends on what your flavor is. But so I was thinking about what Beneath the Tangles bread and butter was for a long time, and we really kind of grew up with Puella Magi Madoka Magica, which is a magical girls series. Usually for most of our audience, it's like, why would I watch this? And then it turns dark really quick and shocked everyone when it happened. And the series has very clear kind of like a devil figure, and a figure that really tempts these young naive girls. And then there's also self-sacrifice going on. There's very much a Jesus figure in that series. So that's one. I mentioned Haibane Renmei earlier, which is a little bit harder to find. It's from the creator of Serial Experiments Lane, and it really takes place in the afterlife. And all these girls who are reborn in the afterlife as angels, and they're just kind of living together and living life. But what you find out is that they probably all committed suicide. And so they have these regrets they're bringing to the afterlife with them that they have to deal with. And once they come to peace with it, they're able to pass on really to the real afterlife. And the kind of the final episode of that is really one of the most creative and powerful meditations on sin that I've seen outside the Bible, and grace too. So really powerful series. And then Trigun is one for action series people that it's really great. There is a priest figure in there who is just like anime does, not really very priest-like, but he gets this scene where he gets to confess and he gets to really deal with his sin and really see someone who I would say is a model of Christ in the series, and really reflect on how that person lived and how he wants to be different. So there you go. There's Bash. That's the Christ figure I was talking about. And then a real kind of current one I would really quickly mention is Vinland Saga. It's really captured a lot of people. It's a historical drama. And there is an actual scene in this where the main character, who when he starts the series is a very angry young man and very violent, ends up killing a lot of people. He's become a slave, like a literal slave. So there's all this metaphor there. And while he's a slave, he's listening to another character read the Sermon on the Mount to another character, and he's just listening to it. And he is profoundly affected by Jesus and his nonviolence. And like the next episode or the episode after that, he has to fight for his freedom. But he decides, I'm not going to fight. I'm going to let myself get beat up by this person, and I'm not going to hit him back. And so while the anime makes clear that this character isn't a Christian, there's something about Jesus' words that's impacting him. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, the possibility of like, we're all seeking Christ, right? And he has the answers for all of us. So that's one that's really, I see people are talking, if you search on Twitter for Christianity and anime, that's a series that keeps coming up time and time and time again.
I love that. And when you look at kind of what we're all doing in essence in the spaces, we're trying to do the same thing that Jesus did in terms of using parables and using these analogies in order to share and hopefully break out into being able to speak to those deeper truths. And I think it's another really good reminder that this is a great opportunity for people who share some of these same views and want to be able to explore those, like having those small groups and these group communities that can open up and have those discussions is probably one of the best ways for us to be able to share our robust feelings about not just the passion we have for the game or the anime, but also like, what did this tell me, and how did this make me think about a certain verse or a certain part of scripture differently? And I think that's one of the coolest things we have in common across all these spaces, is being able to look at something like that and say, and I see Jesus in that. I see something like that. So for fellow fans of gaming, anime, and all of these different franchises that we're into, beyond the small group concepts that I think is a really fantastic way, what are some ways that you would encourage them? And Michael, we'll start with you, to let their light shine in a space that's clearly searching for meaning and answers. What are some ways that you're currently doing that through gaming and God? And then also, what would you encourage people who listen to this and said, this inspired me and I want to do something, but I don't know what?
Okay, that's a good question. I guess I'll answer the second part. It's a little faster. I guess like what could people do? Like when you say that, you mean like, well, how could they contribute, I guess, to the conversation?
Yes,
I
if
guess.
this inspired them, are like, look, I love this stuff, and they're obviously, if you're watching this, is a pretty good chance that you're passionate about Jesus too, and it makes them want to do something. What are some things that you would recommend to get started on that?
Yeah, I think Twitch streaming is huge. Just streaming. So I have to do it more myself, but so like Christian gaming streaming is huge. Like there used to only be like a few people, like Susie and a few other people, but now it's just like just too many. like everybody's like Christian and streaming. So that's really big because it kills a lot of birds with one stone. So it's like you want to play games. This is how I thought about it. I'm like, well, I'm gonna game. I can game online. I just got to turn on my camera. I have my mic, so I can just talk while I'm gaming. So I'm just like, I can just do both. I'm gonna game anyway. So and then you have an audience, and it's a humongous website. It's not like a little Christian YouTube place. It's Twitch. It's huge. Like, and Twitch doesn't care. Like, you can talk about what, like, there's worse things that are happening on Twitch. So, than talking about the gospel. So that people get offended by. So there's lots of stuff on Twitch that you shouldn't be watching. But so Twitch is one big way, or YouTube streaming, or Kick, or whatever. Pick your platform. That's a big one. You don't need anything fancy. I used to think like I had to have like this fancy thing with like like 3 screens. It looks like like a command center. So you don't need any of that. You just need like on the mic on your laptop, or just like a little mic and a camera. So that's one way you can do it. You can start your own little, like I did. I just started a blog. I didn't know what to do, and I was in the same boat. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I have this passion that I want to do something, but I don't know, well, what do I do? I'm just some guy here. I'm not like a pastor or a leader. I'm just Mike. So I was like, I'm just gonna start a blog and write stuff. Like, it's free. Who's going to tell me who's going to tell me I can't write anything? So I was like, I'm just going to write stuff, and then it just started growing, and I reached out to other ministries, and Beneath the Tangles and Geeks Under Grace and other places, and then it just grew. So yeah, and then on my end, what I like to do is, besides writing and sharing and jumping on platforms like this and any other opportunity I have, a big one is just I started growing more because it's gaming and God. So I was like, I want to do more of the God part too. So I was like, okay, how else? I want to make like a resource section for spiritual resources for people that, they want to check out a game, but maybe they want to read like a Christian book, or besides the Bible, or maybe they want to hear a podcast or something that is Christian, not necessarily like a geeky one. So I was like, I'm just going to make like a huge, just a resource dump and just put everything there that I feel is good, So I started doing that, and I just started building on more resources on my podcast, books, YouTube videos, pastors or whatever, just so people have like a place, because maybe they're new believers or something. They're like, I don't even know what to do. Like, that's how I started. When I gave my life to Christ, I didn't come from a Christian home, Christian nothing, So I didn't know what Christian TV was, or churches, or nothing. Nothing. So I was like, I'm just going to read the Bible. I don't know what else to do. I'm just going to read the Bible. And I just read the Bible a lot, and I wish I could read it as vigorously as I used to when I was younger, but that's just all I did. And I didn't know. I was like, I'm a Christian. I guess I read the Bible. That's what Christians do. So besides that, just so people have a resource page. So whether it's geeky stuff, I've made that, and then like the non-geeky but still Christian stuff. So I'm trying to produce more of that, and just expand it out. So I highly encourage people to check out my site, or of course Beneath the Tangles and all of our stuff, to just find more resources there, and then at least you have something to start with. So
I know on Gaming and God, you actually, I remember earlier this year, I think you had put a whole resource page of a lot of different places where you can go, whether you're a fan of anime, whether you're a fan of gaming, where there's specific groups and different pages that you can follow, different Twitter handles,
communities,
that you can start following, communities.
Yeah, there's a lot of communities
Discord
too, like
servers.
Discord servers. There's a bunch of them. I mean, some kind of like they die out, but I try to keep it up to date. But there's a bunch that are like, there's churches, like there's XP Church, there's Lux Church, there's there's another one. I'm just Checkpoint Church. There's a bunch, and I was like, and they're huge. And it's like a lot of things, like they're really big and they're space, but you don't know about them. And then when you go there, you're like, oh my gosh, these are like, this is a big thing. I just don't know about it, Like, so they have like staff, and it's a thing. It's not just like some guy on his computer. Like, it's a whole thing, So yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. It's just people don't know about it. So I hope people check it out, and they just, plug into whatever fits for them, or they like.
And there's so much room in the world for more of this. And one of the things when people tell me like, well, why do you have to use the K-pop demon hunters? Why do you use video games? Why do you use these particular things? I have to be honest. there's not a lot of Christian-based content out there for me to choose from. If I was going to say, all right, I'm going to use purely Christian-created media, I'm going to run out of options probably in about 45 days. And I'm gonna say, all right, well, now I need to find something else. So there is a lot of space for more content creators out there. As a matter of fact, I would say the best response we could have is there needs to be more of us that are in these spaces actively working and using our gifts for that. So there could be more of this. It would be great if there was a K-pop Demon Hunters or a Marvel Cinematic Universe equivalent in the Christian realm. I think we would all enjoy that very, very much. So Charles, same question for you. What would you encourage those that appreciate the content that we do to find that path to letting their light shine in these dark places?
I have some thoughts on it, but then I have so many thoughts from what you guys were talking about. So I want to rewind a little bit. For instance, the creating something in the space, right? I'm wearing this Gabriel and the Guardians shirt, which is an Angel Studios series. They've got one episode out right now, but this is the attempt to create something that is Christian, but isn't straight up biblical, isn't the retelling of scripture. It's a creative piece, and it's really good. They've got excellent people working on it. Really terrific script writers, incredible artists, great voice actors. So that's one example of what's being created over here. Because what we're seeing now, which is really exciting me, is Christians creating Christian content that's good. Because we have a lot of Christian content that's not good. So it's great to see people using the creative aspects to create something that is pointing to God, explicitly. Also, what I thought was really interesting is Michael was talking about these communities is community, right? So we think about Twitch, and this is the old man in me. I was like, why do I want to watch someone play video games, right? And some of it is, I realize that some of it is engaging, right? It's the host who's really, really terrific and entertaining. But the other big aspect that I've come to realize is community, right? That idea that these people belong here. Well, maybe there's an opportunity for the church to do that, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing. And so it's really great to see Christian streamers, like Michael, we have a Twitch too that's focused on art. But then there's really big ones out there. Mention XP Church. So that's Pastor Susie's got a really big community. Akian Family is a family-centered gaming community. And if you go to those communities, you see people like having community together. And then there's the Discords as well, where people can do kind of these small group things together, or at least be in a type of Christian community. So that's awesome too. And then my kind of just short answer, because I keep talking to what you said, Steve, was I just think if we're in these spaces and we are modeling Christ, so the important thing is that we are really focused on our spiritual lives apart from these spaces. We're seeking to be plugged into community. We're serving. We're growing. We're worshiping God. We're praying. We're doing all these things we need to do so that we're growing. We're going to be different because these spaces are already really difficult. They've always been difficult, right? They've always been challenging places. They're places where it's easy for the devil to really get a foothold in. And then right now we're in a divisive time on top of all that too. So we will clearly shine, and Christ will shine through us. And as we're building relationships, which is what we're supposed to be doing, we're supposed to be loving others. There are going to be opportunities. There are going to be opportunities for people to be like, hey, I'm really suffering. Can we talk? And I used to think that was like, that might happen. That kind of felt like that's possible. But I'm seeing it. It's happening all the time in our ministry. It's happening all the time, I'm sure, in yours, Steve, and yours, Michael's, where people are coming to us because they see Christ shining a light through us in these dark places.
It can be challenging, I think, a lot of times as we get ready to close that, to start doing that. But I will tell you just candidly, when I mentioned we've been doing this for 7 years. So I looked at some of the stuff that we did 7 years ago, and it was positively cringeworthy. I'm just like, what even was that? That was, oh, wow. We needed so much help. But you have to start with that, I think. And sometimes I think we get to the feeling of, well, it's got to be polished and it's got to be really, really. No, just get it out there and get it started and get the ball rolling. And if only 2 people are watching your Twitch, that's 2 people hearing the good news about Jesus that would not have heard it otherwise. And I think that's the other part. You can feel like, I mean, I feel the algorithm pain. I'm sure you all do too. Sometimes you're like, man, sometimes it'd be a lot easier if I didn't hashtag Christian themes and some of this stuff, and I might have a better chance. But we must, because that's ultimately what we're trying to get and to search for, is those souls that are hurting and need help. You might reach one. God took Philip way out of the way to reach one person who was traveling long dirt road. At least we get to do it in air conditioning, right? We're doing it while playing a video game. So much better than having to walk down a long dirty road for miles waiting for a random carriage to show up. And then after that, he didn't even get a ride in the carriage afterwards. So what I would encourage everyone is wherever you feel that pull at, start, and don't expect it to be perfect. I look back at some of those things, I'm like, yeah, that's the equivalent of macaroni paintings on the refrigerator. But I also know that when the Lord was looking at that, he saw that the way I do when my daughter hands me that macaroni, like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, because the effort is there. And believe it or not, it found a way through our complete incompetence to reach somebody somehow. So as we wrap up, I just want to give each of you an opportunity to share about your ministries for those that maybe aren't totally familiar with it. So Charles, I'll start with you. Tell us about Beneath the Tangles and the places we can find you.
Yeah, no, go to beneath-the-tangles.com. That's where we do a lot of articles. A lot of our stuff is just basic reviewing anime, you know, not necessarily we're Christian in everything we do, but it's not necessarily like this is what we see in here. It's just we're passionate about anime, right? And then we do deeper analysis about anime from a Christian perspective as well. We're also on every social media platform. So whatever way you like to consume your content, you'll see us out there. We're doing it in different ways. We're about to launch a video kind of series with interviews, which is going to be really cool. So please be looking out for that. I definitely want to point people to Twitch. We have an amazing artist who draws on there. She's drawing. She'll draw a character on there and talk to people while she's doing that. We have a Substack called Above Anime that Michael contributes to. That's kind of an anime devotional once a month. I don't know how you do it, Steve, every day, but it's like it's one we do it once a week. We post a devotional, and also we link all our content. So that's a good way to keep up with us too. I want to mention a couple partners as well, just because I think they're really doing exciting stuff out there. Anime Relatable does these really great kind of meditations on Christians and how we should be engaging with anime, but with each other as well. There are 2 kind of organizations that are putting out conventions that are coming up really cool. ReachConf in Florida is coming up in November 6th through 8th, I think. And that's bringing together all these creators, a lot of VTubers, but also other stuff, all sorts of other things. I'm going to try and make it out to that. We have I recommended one of their speakers, Caitlin Glass, so I feel like I gotta go since I made the recommendation. The other one is the Nerd Culture Ministry Summit, which has happened for several years now as well. They're gonna meet in Colorado Springs, I believe, in March or April, and that is really a little bit more gaming focused, but also all sorts of other things as well, and they do really cool stuff as well.
That is awesome. I'll just give an answer on your thing about doing daily devotionals. We made a decision a long time ago. We can either do things really well or we can be very prolific, and you can see which way we decided to go with that. So, so Michael, tell me about Gaming and God, and where can we find you, and what can we look for from you, and what's coming up?
Yeah, thank you. So my website is gamingandgod.com. I wish I could update it more. It's just sometimes I just don't have the time, but I mainly write articles on there, on the blog, on social media. I'm on Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever. I'm still calling it Twitter. Instagram, I have it. I have to update it more. I would love to do more stuff with Instagram. And then TikTok, I have it, but it's like I haven't done anything with TikTok. But yeah, so social media, mainly X is where I usually post because it's more chatty. Huh?
Twitch.
Oh, yes, and Twitch. Yes, which I need to Twitch more. So I did. I'm playing right now through Silk Song Hollow Knight. It's amazing. It's so hard, that game. It's a beautiful game. So yeah, I'm trying to stream more. Yeah, and then I'm also on Substack. I'm trying to post like different content there. Like I get like stuck sometimes. Like I want to write, and then it's like I'm the opposite. Like I want to do it right, and then I don't end up doing nothing. So I'm trying to just spit out content, and I'm like, just like what you said, I'm just gonna just write it and lands where it lands. If it's great, it's great. If it's not, I'll use Grammarly. I make it nice, but I'm just gonna throw it out there. So I'm trying to do more of that. And we also have a YouTube, which is I'm trying to post more stuff there. So I have some things in the works that I'm trying to do and focus more on discipleship content. I was always stuck. I think this year I feel that the Lord led me to like what do I want to do with this thing, and I feel like it's more to focus on discipleship and resources than just random stuff. So I don't want to be like another game review site. I mean, Geeks Under Graces and there's other sites that are just great at that, and I'm not the review guy. I don't really like writing reviews. It's too technical. I just want to like flow with it. So I'm trying to make more resources that can disciple people, that are gamers or non-gamers, to the Lord. So make it more explicitly like this is what we're about, and yeah. So I'm trying to do that.
Love that. Well, hope we get to see you more on all of those things for certain. We all know it's hard to balance this with the real world jobs that we have and everything with that. So it's been such a pleasure to get to sit with both of you on this. Yeah, and I'm Steven, and I do Finding God in video games. So yes, Charles is sharing there.
On Amazon or wherever is the best place to get these.
Yeah, I have mine downstairs. I don't have it on me downstairs.
We do put our books on Amazon, but I will also say all of our devotions are presented freely every single day and on our Finding God in Video Games website. So you don't have to buy books. We give it for free every day, and then we share videos from them each day as well. So as I mentioned, if you can't do it really, really well, do it a lot. And that's what we've chose to do, it said. So we definitely want to make sure we're sharing daily our love of Christ. And we do it through our passion for things from K-pop demon hunters to superheroes. We're on a Star Wars devotional series right now. And then hopefully at the end of this year, we're going to have our third devotional up if everything goes according to plan. So we're working on that right now.
You guys did great. You know that you're just in the room to serve when you forget to promote your own stuff.
We probably would stay here for 3 more hours.
Oh yeah, we can keep talking.
We
can just take over your con and just
I mean, you can have it. You can have it. I've been in this chair for 8 hours. I'm all right. So you all did great. I'm going to take you down from stage. I want to thank you so much for your time, for your resources, for the laughs. And oh my gosh, you lit up that chat. You were beautiful. But I'm going to take you off stage now.